Hello, Giri.
Hello, Lilou. How are you?
Very good. It's good to be doing another session of the Open Heart series together. Yeah, I have experienced a lot the past week based on what you said last time, and we shared an email, and I would love you to share what you explained to me again by email the other day based on our session. And I think it can be useful to a lot of people, women and men, to hear this.
Well, you had told me that you noticed that in the past you have often settled for relationships that turn out not to be really good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go to psychology for a moment here, then we can learn what happens is that for it's true for a little girl with a father and for a little boy with a mother that we learn our basic patterns of relating to the opposite sex from our parents.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a problem in a relationship with one parent, that tends to be reflected in relationships later. Now, when you have a situation such as yours, where your parents divorced and the father moved away when you were very young, 11, then what happens is the natural desire of a child to have the parent available to you becomes even stronger. It's like as a child, you need the parent, you need the father.
Yeah.
And so you want the father. At the same time, you may get angry and reject him. We talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
But that desire of wanting the father and not being able to have him and so on gets stronger. So then later, you become an adult and you still have this complex of stressful thoughts about the father who is selfish and who's a bad communicator and who doesn't spend enough time with you and who ignored you. Those were some of the thoughts from last week.
Yeah.
So you have those in the back of your mind. And with that as a pattern, do you then look for a possible partner? And it becomes a mess.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, you have this desire to have a relationship, and then you have all these messages. Well, I already know that they're not going to be spending, enough time with me, and that they'll be ignoring me, and so. And that's the kind of guy you'll find. And at first, he's paying great attention to you because he's courting you. So you think, oh, this one is going to be different, you know. But because the pattern is still inside of you, you unconsciously tend to pick the kind of men who fulfill this pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So what we need to do in order to qualify and to be capable of the kind of relationship that we really want to have is we need to clean up the patterns inside the mind. And that's what we were doing. And so what came out of that is just this thought that as you clear out the old pain and these old concepts from the relationship with your dad, they get cleared out in the way you relate to men.
Yeah.
And yeah, you said that's what happened. But then the next thought is, now you were thinking about a new relationship, somebody was on the horizon and so on. And I'm just saying, be choosy. Choose the one that really touches your soul in a deep way. Don't just settle for a relationship because there's still this old hunger to have somebody close by.
Yeah. And there's two things related to that, because I have experience, and I did a video on this about how I'm moved by men's sensitivity and heart and emotions and them sharing, and I've been just really receiving an abundance of particularly messages from men that are watching videos and interviews or these series and are expressing themselves in such a way that is more open-hearted than women or me or many. It's just like I've been blown away, and I've been really in touch with the fact that I'm the one that haven't been wanting to see that sensitive, loving side of men, and I've been pushing that away. So I've been very moved by that. I've been very touched by that. And the second thing is also that I haven't, like as I said, I went on this date, and yes, this man was not corresponding at all to the type of relationship or an exchange, and it hasn't touched my soul. So I really saw how before I just jump in any kind of you know, relationship just because a man is interested, and that always led me to failure in this department. It's so I'm touched by the fact that, you know, you said let this man, you know, or your potential life partner or your boyfriend or somebody that you're going to share your life with touch your soul, because that's never, I mean, it sounds silly, but that's never what I've been looking for, you know, or I've never thought of that, and I didn't want that, frankly, because I was scared to love. So
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Well, see, the world, or in your case, men, you know, that part of the world is not one way or the other. The world is the way we see it.
Yeah.
And every human being lives in a different world. And what world we live in is determined by the way we look out of our eyes into the world. So if you're free, if you're deep in love with life, that's the kind of world you see. Mm-hmm. And again, the change comes inside of us. So we can be in charge. And now what you're getting is on one hand, the understanding that you can change your world from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And then you're also getting the skills of how to do it, which of course it's a nice theory until we can actually do it.
But it's wonderful to experience that. I mean, I really had some sentiment, I mean, some feelings of being reborn in some ways, of just really not even to a place where I'm not even knowing what to do with myself, so new this is to me, you know, some ecstasy, some just like, whoa, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now, you know, and then I shut back down again because it scares me, and then I reopen. But I really had those moments where my heart was just so tender and open. It's really good. I'm excited because it's like a new life within this life. You know, if I can live like that, it's truly. I see it as a blessing, because I've been not depriving myself from that feeling for so many years. You know, and craving that and not knowing how to do it. So it's really, really cool.
So we live on a certain level of being, or of emotional and spiritual maturity, and then the time comes where we can enter a higher level. So it looks like that's what happened to you. And now on this higher level, you also have your peaks and your valleys, you know? And you have your high spots and your low spots. Now we need to understand, first of all, that we're going someplace. It's not just the ups and downs that just happen and make no sense. We go through these ups and downs, but we're moving in a direction, and the direction is toward the self, toward the freedom of our soul, or you can say toward God, or toward enlightenment, or whatever term you want to use. So we have a direction, and that means, first of all, that when the inevitable valley occurs, we're not going to lose our path in there. We have a direction. It's like an internal compass needle. We go down into the valley because that's what life does at times, but we're moving right straight through it. We just keep moving, and we're moving toward that greater goal. So that's the first thing. We have to have this goal. But then you also have the skills now, and with the skills you can go, you notice you have a high, and then you go down a little bit, and you can use the skills right away, which means you don't have to go down all the way to where you used to go into the valley. You can catch it right there, because what pushes you down into the valley, into the negative experience, is the stressful thought, is the old stressful emotion. So now we have tools for that. And you go down a little bit, you elevate yourself again. You go down, you elevate, and that's how you cross the valley. You may go overall, you may go down a little bit, but you don't hit bottom like you used to. You don't get as miserable as you used to, because you can just check it. You can catch it right there when you're down a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I still plunge. I'm still at the stage where I'm like, whoa! And I go down.
Well, but then you're down there, and if you have an ongoing practice, something that you perhaps do every day, like do one belief at a time worksheet every day, then you tend to just catch it right there. Because one of the things that happen when we have a high and then we plunge down into the valley, at that plunge we tend to forget all the skills we have, right? And go, oh my God, the terrible thing is happening again, you know, and we forget everything we can do to save ourselves from that suffering. So when you have a regular practice, like for instance, every morning I get up and I do a worksheet.
Oh.
Just on one thought. It takes like 10, 15 minutes once you have a routine with that, you know. And, you know, some days it's like not a big life-changing thing. It's just something else that I'm getting free of. But then when the critical time comes and I'm plunging into the valley, then that exercise is right there. And I will know what it is that's like making me unsettled or making me depressed. And I can stop it right there through the inquiry. So I don't have to go down that low, or if I go down that low, I can help myself again.
So I could potentially do this worksheet about God.
About God?
Yeah.
Did you say? Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good thing to do, because we all have stressful thoughts about God.
No kidding.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's so many people who have just deep pain about the experience that they've had in religious institutions,
yeah,
which are really, I want to say, mostly human experiences. And then they get mixed up with the whole notion of God, and that's why so many people can't even use the word anymore. It's like they were choking using that word. You know, I was like that, but I made peace with it. And I can just use any language that somebody uses that's working with me. I can just go wherever because it's no longer stressful for me. But I honor that when people are really stressed about God because they went through bad experiences, they're still looking very hard often for some solutions or for some larger cosmic understanding, and they can have it, but we don't need to have the word God.
Well, personally, I felt disappointed at some point, like especially during these times where I was raised in Catholic schools, and all of a sudden, you know, all of this happened, and my parents didn't push me in any way to go to those schools or to attend, you know, and to go to church, but I was always the one. They got their own fear and hurt about that. And I was the one going, and I probably, as a lot of other people, you know, experience being disappointed about God, and like, okay, you know, you let me down, and blaming the suffering that I could have lived, you know, to Him.
Well, we have to understand that there's two ways of dealing with these ultimate questions, and one is the way of religion. Now, religion, the way it's mostly practiced, is the belief in someone else's belief. That doesn't excite me very much any longer. What excites me is to have the direct experience of the ultimate.
Yeah.
That's the old mystical way, you know, the esoteric religion, the way of not saying, well, it's not enough for me if the priest tells me something or the minister. I have to know. I have to have my experience. And there are millions of people now who have switched from simply taking religion as something that's being fed to the masses to saying, no, this doesn't work for me anymore. I need to know. I need to have a direct wire, you know, live wire, an open telephone line to God, to my soul, to enlightenment. Again, pick the language that works for you.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's how I felt, and I always felt like this is the connection rather than the religion in itself or the belief. But however, if you were born in a certain religion, I think we do have some, like the guilt in Catholicism is big. Right. You know, I'm feeling guilty about receiving and opening up. I mean, I think that's mainly where I'm at. It's like this guilt, continuous guilt. So that's not good.
But then you see,
that's
on
not
the
what
other
God
hand,
wants.
I completely understand and agree with you. But on the other hand, we can see that if we have guilt, if we have anger, if we have depression, if we have sadness, if we have grief, whatever it is, that's our path. And then we can get stuck in blaming this institution or that person for it. That's where psychology often falls down, you know, because they only look at that part. And yeah, it may have started that way, you know, but here we are. I have the guilt, I have the shame, I have the anger, I have the depression. The question is, what do I do now? And then it turns out that dealing with that skillfully is my path. I don't have another one. That's my path. So am I just going to go forward and free myself? And then the beautiful thing is that whatever problem or challenge I have, if you think about your challenge right now, then think about what's the opposite of that. If you have shame, what's the opposite of that for you?
Freedom.
Freedom. So freedom, that's the lesson. Having that shame is the lesson of freedom. How could you have freedom in a real and solid way if it wasn't by working through that shame and getting free of it? You see, the freedom wouldn't mean anything to you.
Yeah. Same thing
So
then for the love. The love wouldn't be so big and immense, having been deprived or depriving myself from it for so many years.
What we have all the time, we don't value, we don't even know we have. Yeah. As they say, fish don't know about water. So we have to lose it and regain it, and that's how we can really have it. So the same with our relationship with God. So many people have to lose it to a certain extent and then regain it in a way that's much more vibrant and real and becomes solid and unchanging because it's based on direct inner experience.
So I have a request. Could we do the worksheet together and walk through it so that everybody else too, watching this could see how it works? Because that's how, through the lessons with Michael Lozier, I know people really appreciate that when he walks through the step and we do it together, because then people can do it at the same time. Can we do that in relationship to God?
Yeah, so you're talking about the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet.
Yeah, with God.
Okay, good. Yeah, so did you write that already, or do you have a blank one there?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so what is your primary emotion about God when you look at the stressful emotions?
Stressful emotions regarding to God. He's not there when I need him to be here.
Okay, so that would be a thought. What's the emotion? See, the first question is, I am blank at God because. So after the because would be because he's not there for me.
I am angry at God because he's not there for me.
Okay.
I am disappointed at God because he's not there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm just making the notes here.
I am pessimistic about God.
Mm-hmm. So he's not there for you? Why else are you disappointed, pessimistic, angry?
Because there's all those problems in the world. And how could there be? If there was a God that wanted the best for us.
Okay, so what's the thought of that? God should take care of the problems in the world?
Be all the time present.
Okay. So let's go back to the worksheet. So do you have something under the number 2 question? Can you read that?
Number 2, how do you want them to change? What do you want them to do?
What advice do you have for God? Go for it, honey. It's your world.
I want God to be here for everyone.
Okay.
I want God to open people's hearts. I want God to be here. I want God to... I want God to be present. I want him to be a physical person.
So under number 3, what should that person, God, right now, what should or shouldn't they do, be, think, or feel? One of the ones you said is that God should be present all the time.
Yeah. Omnipresent.
Okay. Okay. What else?
God should fix problems.
Okay.
Or
Fix
people
problems. You
with
mean
the
the
good
problem?
intentions. I mean, he should just, you know, he should, yeah.
Say that
He
again.
should do his work.
Okay.
That's his job. Oh, this
Got it.
sounds bad.
And what you need, no, this is excellent. See, this is simply the worksheet where you put your thoughts, your stressful thoughts down in a raw form, but in a form that can be investigated. That's what this worksheet is for. So we don't want to be kind, wise, or spiritual here. We just want to put down what the thinking does, what thoughts come up that are stressful. Right? And you're doing it very well. So then, under number 4, what do you need from God? What do you need God to do for you to be happy?
I need God to show me signs, to talk to me, to I don't know, to let me sorry to I need God to make miracles happen. I need God to support me. Yeah, I need God to support me and others.
Okay. And what do you think of God? Make a list. Number 5.
I'm getting really blank and peaceful right now, so it's more and more difficult. Interesting. God is like characteristics about God.
Say again?
I
Characteristics.
have to say I'm
Think
having a
about
hard
it.
time. God is.
So one of the things that I heard from you is that you feel that God is not present at times.
Yeah.
Right? So God is not present. What else?
God is selective.
Uh-huh. So he loves some and not others? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah.
Okay. So he loves conditionally?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
God is maybe inexistent. God is hurtful.
Okay.
God can let somebody down.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And then the 6th question is, what is it that you don't ever want to experience with God again?
I felt betrayed.
Okay. All right, love. So your first answer was, God, I'm angry at God, I'm disappointed, I'm pessimistic about God because he's not there for me. So let's have a look. This is, of course, 2 concepts. I'm angry at God and God is not there for me. So why don't we go with the second one? God is not there for me. Okay?
Yeah.
So let's ask the 4 questions. Is that true, that God is not there for you?
God is not there for me. So I have to find examples? Sorry?
No. This is just a yes or no question. Is it true that God is not there for you?
No.
Good to know. And then we go to the third question, because when you have a no there, then the question number 2 is automatically a no. And the question number 2 is, can you absolutely be certain that it's true? So that would be clearly a no also. So then we go to the third question, how do you react? What happens when you believe that God is not there for you?
I stop, I stop opening my heart and doing good and being of service, and I shut down.
Yeah. And then when you have this thought, God is not there for me, how do you live? What world do you live in?
I isolate myself.
Mm-hmm.
And
what kind of world is this?
I'm sad and I'm sad and negative.
Yeah.
And alone.
Then how do you treat yourself when you believe God is not there for me?
I can be angry at myself, pissed off, bulimic, overeating.
Yeah.
I can be ashamed, shy, withdraw. I freeze.
Yeah.
I isolate myself.
And Lilou, what world do you live in when you believe that God is not there for you?
In a cold, negative, separated world.
A world void of God.
It's meaningless.
So can you think of one peaceful reason to keep this belief that God is not there for you?
No.
So then, the fourth question, who would you be without this thought? If you could never have that thought again, who would you be?
Conditional service.
How wonderful.
Yep.
So let's turn it around. God is not there for me. How would you turn that around?
God is omnipresent.
Well, no, when we do the turnarounds,
yeah,
we stay very closely to the wording of the original thought. So God is not there for me.
God is here for me.
God is here for me. So now...
Is it selfish to say that He's here for me?
Well,
He's here for us?
I'm interested in you finding your truth. And my experience is that when I'm in my truth, there's no selfishness there. It's just the truth. So why don't we try that? So the turnaround is God is there for me. And then the question arises, can you find maybe 3 concrete ways that this statement, God is there for you, is true for you? Has that ever been true for you?
Well, I am living my mission and passion and helping people in the world.
Right. So feel that.
So I've been guided. I mean, I'm guided daily.
Well, wonderful. So feel that. Let yourself realize that. That's the reality of God's presence for you. That's what I hear from you. So really feel that. Take that in. Where do you feel that in your body? I'm guided. I'm living my mission.
My heart.
Yeah. Here again, the magic of the turnaround. You let the truth, the way the turnaround is true for you, you let that come in, and all the old shame and betrayal and all those old feelings, they have to leave because they cannot coexist with the recognition of that truth. And you recognize it by letting the feeling in, to let you be touched by the proof of the turnaround, the evidence for the turnaround. So that's one piece of evidence. Do you have any other experience that you can point to that tells you that God is here for you?
For me.
Yeah, for you. That is your inquiry,
That
your
we're
reality.
having this conversation right now.
Yeah. So let that come in. Let that really be felt. What does it mean to you in that context that we're having this conversation right now?
What does it mean?
When you're saying this is proof to you that God is there for you, so can you say something more about that? How is
Because
that proof to you?
I've been seeking to this reconnection for a long time, and was one of those persons that couldn't mention the word God 15 years ago. And since then, when I noticed that, I've been, and have ongoing spiritual conversations, but not fully letting that, the God's presence, or...
Yeah.
So it's meaningful because it's something I've been seeking and wanting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting how it came here today in this open heart series, which I would have never thought this was going to lead to this.
Surprise.
Yeah.
So you have two examples for the truth of that turnaround. Can you find a third one? Evidence that God is there for you.
I mean, I am present to everything is... I mean, that, for example, even things that hurt me in the past that I could have blamed God for it, like my parents, divorce or some other things, and all the pain that I've felt, during that time. And yeah, isolation and all that is a blessing because I couldn't do what I'm doing right now. And I couldn't feel the synchronicity and the realness and the authenticity of that search, and to help even more people. Like, I couldn't do that if I didn't felt that then. So I can be of better service now because of that.
Beautiful. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So you got 3 examples. There may be more, and I invite you to just keep looking, But for now, let's just go to the next turnaround. Your original thought is, God is not there for me. What would be another turnaround for that?
God is always here for me.
We just did that one.
Would I what?
We just did that one.
Yeah.
God is, right?
That's it.
So what's
That's
another
the one.
turn? No, sweetheart, there's 2 more.
Oh.
I can see.
I don't know now. This one is the one.
There's a turnaround. God is not there for me. Turn it around to yourself.
God is here for
You
me.
put yourself, you put yourself into the place of God in that sentence. God is not there for me. Then it becomes, I am not there for me.
I see. I am not there for me.
So can you find that? Has that been true at times?
Yeah, very, very often.
So give yourself again 3 concrete examples of that. So you become conscious of that, and it doesn't have to keep happening unconsciously.
I see.
How have you not been there for you at times?
I haven't been there for me in time of difficulties. I mean, I bring myself down even more. I don't uplift myself. I really can go, you know, down. I can be very harsh on myself. I haven't been there for me to take care of my body as I could, you know, in a more healthy, nurturing way. I haven't been there for me I mean, like, I want to say, you know, receiving all the greatness, you know, receiving, like, not opening up to receiving. Like, I give, but then when it's, so I'm not letting that in and letting it flow, and so I haven't been there for me in that way.
Right. See, plenty of examples of how you haven't been there for you.
Yeah.
And that can change now that you're becoming conscious of it.
Cool.
Got it?
Yeah.
Good. So there's one more turnaround. God is not there for me. And we go to God is there for me. We go to I am not there for me. And then you turn it, we call this a turnaround to the other. So we pull God back in. I am not there for God. And for those, how has that been true? And let me just add this, for those listeners who have a hard time with the word God, because it's still sort of this cosmic human being who's often unfriendly and punitive and punishing, we can say, can make this turnaround. I am not there for my higher self. I'm not there for my truth. That would all be the same type of turnaround. So how have you not been there for God, Lilou?
By not allowing help. People helping in my mission.
Mm-hmm.
By not allowing more people and, you know, structures and teams, you know, to be there to help this big mission, to help this to unfold.
Uh-huh.
Like by not receiving help.
Not receiving help. Yeah.
Wanting to do it all on my own.
You've been angry instead, and pessimistic and disappointed.
A lone ranger.
Yeah.
So that's one.
Yeah.
I haven't. What's the question again? Sorry, I need some reminder because otherwise.
Yeah, that's fine. The turnaround is I'm not there for God.
I'm not there for God. I'm not there for God by being selfish.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm not being there for God by separating myself from the world.
Yeah.
No. By not being self-expressed.
Yeah.
By not being intimate.
You know, a lot of people have been raised with a religion, and often as children, before the mind set in and became critical and disappointed and felt betrayed, etc., they've had a deeply devotional relationship, a real sense of being in the presence of God or the numinous. And that can be very strong in people's lives when they're young. And then it gets covered up by all the disappointment in religion and so on and so forth, and the troubles of life. And so many of us have not been there for God in that way, have not been there for that devotional sentiment in us, this great love that we have that gets, buried under all the other stuff.
Yeah. That's how it feels.
Yeah. Well, so you can find that again and live it in a way that's right for you now, with a different mind, the mind of an adult, the mind of a spiritually conscious person, not perhaps following simply the belief of other people's belief, but really deeply opening to experiencing the presence of God in whatever way is right for you, personally and directly. I'm reminded of my guru who, when we asked him, how do we become liberated? How do we become enlightened? He said, love people, serve people, and remember God. Because, God, what we call God, of course, this deepest self, is in every person as it is in us. And you have such a wonderful mission of service, so I think something inside of you knows that very well, the truth of that.
Yeah, and I felt that when I was little.
Yeah.
To the magnitude it was. And I feel it's more and more, I have to say, and I do, I don't want to make it sound like, but this is at a whole other level.
Yeah.
Because I have been self-expressed, and I have been, in some ways, but in some other areas, not at all. I can do this on camera, but then when I'm in with a person, it's very different. So, I know how much I had been holding back from that self-expression and that love, compared to what I know and feel and know in my heart is possible.
So we're like these hot air balloons, we have this tremendous love, this heat of love in our hearts, and it gives us this updrift. But we've got the sandbags holding us down. Mm-hmm. So what we need to do is not so much worry about the love that's already there. We have to cut off those sandbags so we can gain altitude in that way of loving, that way of being present for ourselves and for God, and in the end that turns out to be the same thing.
So what do you recommend, Ramjiri, when you feel all this love and ecstasy and just greatness, you're in that place and you never really found yourself before in that place? I found myself wondering, what am I doing with myself? And then sometimes I have this thought, and then boom, it goes back down.
Yeah, right. Well, that going up and down is simply a way that we learn. We go up and we find a new, greater love, a greater connection with the universe or with truth. And that's wonderful. And then we have to go back a little bit to those parts of us that are still also there, that stand in conflict with that newfound freedom. So we can take care of them, so we can get free of them. So that's really this sort of stair-stepping way of how we get where we're going into that freedom. So first of all, understand that that's not a setback or that you're losing it or whatever the mind says. It's simply a lawful way of us getting free in this kind of up and down way, but we never go down as far as we went up. Although it may feel that way, you know, you have a high and then you're in the next valley and all you remember is really the past high. And you don't really realize that this valley is shallower than where you used to be. So, and having said that, on the other hand, the suffering that we find in these valleys can become more and more subtle. And that means that paradoxically it can be more powerful. Because we're finding those deep roots of old karma or old suffering, and we're emptying out these old caches of terror that we just don't need anymore. So why can we do this? Why can we go into a valley that may at times be deeper? Because we're strong enough. Because we have the means and the skills now and the guidance to clear that valley out of whatever shadows lurk there, you know? So understand that. But then when you're in that place of openness and love, just celebrate it. Understand that we're born for that love, that we have a deeply devotional nature, many of us. For some people that suspect it's not their path. Their path is more going through the mind, and that's just as good of a path. But then many people have just a very great heart, and they're discovering it, and then often they don't know what to do with it because they have no people around them that reflect that love. That will come in time. So just celebrate your love. And in terms of devotion, what you can do if you have a meaningful connection with a form of divinity, with Jesus, with God, with Mary, with a teacher, dead or alive, a guru, somebody who's real for you, somebody who represents for you this completeness of your spirit, a deity perhaps when we go into other religions, and so on. Then celebrate that relationship and know it to be ultimate and a mirror image of your own completeness. But we can often not find the completeness in us yet. So we look at an image and we find it there and we celebrate that love, and it makes the heart strong. So celebrate it. You know, a lot of people create a puja table, which is a little altar at home, and they put what's really meaningful for them there. Maybe a picture of a sacred person, a bell, some incense, some flowers, you know, something like that. So you celebrate this most important place, this deepest place in your heart, and you cultivate it, and you learn to love like a little child. You know, we need just baby steps. We learn to love. We learn to go willfully, on purpose, into this place of the open heart. And we begin to learn to nurture ourselves from there. And as we do that, we realize that that nurturing is less and less dependent on situations or people. We don't have to be with somebody who loves us in order to go into the heart and to feel this fulfillment that comes out of there without end, really. The love that we hold in every human heart is the potential of the love that has ever been experienced in this universe. We all have that potential. And we use a little bit, but that can be enlarged. We just drink more and more from this well. We've done the heart sourcing meditation. That's a great way of going directly into that heart. But feel free to let that love that's in you be mirrored and celebrated in relationship with one of the great beings that we've had on this planet. We've had unbelievable beings. And it's because of them that we even have a chance to know what to do. Because they left their footprints in the sand. They left these skills. They left instructions for us that we can follow. Because they too are just as human as we are, or have been as human as we are. But they found the place of freedom, just like we can find the place of freedom. It's patterned inside of us. That's why the desire arises, because it's possible. And this is a big message. I mean, many people think, you know, somebody who is like Buddha or Jesus, you know, there's so few of them that happened like thousands of years ago, it couldn't be true for me. Look at me, poor schmuck with all my hang-ups and my anger and my depression. It couldn't be happening for me. That's no longer true. We live in a different time. We have different skills. We have different guidance. There's many people now, most of them do not act as teachers. It's not, their personality is not made to be a teacher. They just live their lives. They're bus drivers or housewives or, financial consultants or whatever they are. They do what they do, but they no longer create suffering for themselves. They live in the space of the open heart, of the liberated mind, in the space of truth. And that is possible for you and every single person watching. Yes, it takes some work. It takes some insight. It takes stillness. It takes questioning those negative thoughts. But it's possible for all of us. Now I know that we have a lot more, excuse me, a lot more stressful statements on your worksheet, and I would love to have a chance to work with them with you, because when you have an important relationship like that one with God, just going over one statement is usually not enough. It really gives us an idea of an openness and a potential, but we want to be conscientious and work through some more of this, and if you'd like, maybe we can do that in the next session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful. Well, thank you, Giri. I guess this is the end of our open